10:05 a.m. this Thursday morning, March 6th, 2025. Let's have a little bit of fun. I got some thoughts I want to share. Yeah, you remember my past video to where I spoke about vaults and I brought about Mr. Trump, open up Fort Knox, let's see the gold. Well, of course, shortly thereafter, other videos started to surface in reference to let's see the gold, open up Fort Knox. And of course, we already have the theories that, well, okay, so yeah, they'll fill up Fort Knox full of gold bars from other gold depositories. And then once the onlookers are satisfied, they can go ahead and redistribute those gold bars back to the gold depositories to where they once originated, given the illusion that there is more gold than what there may perhaps have been stated. Okay, so that was just one of my vault thoughts, right? And then I also brought up the historical vault within Mount Rushmore. I would love to see that open. I would love to see what is hidden within for the future ages. There are many other vaults out there. Now, there's a couple vaults that I would actually like to see destroyed. Noah's Ark. What, Morgan? Noah's Ark? What are you talking about? The Great Seed Vault. A vault full of every seed known to mankind to have ever existed or to exist. Now, more than likely, this would also include not only your so-called heritage seeds, seeds of tradition, but those that have been under the hybridization process and the genetic alterations thereof. I would like to see that seed vault destroyed for certain reasons and purposes. Now then, what other vault would I like to see destroyed? Well, I believe there's a mountainside vault, another mountainside vault, out there in, what is it, Utah? Possibly Oregon? I can't remember right offhand. Anyways, it's owned and operated by the Church of Latter-day Saints. I guess that would be, what, the Mormons? Records dating back to, I believe, 1952 of every person that has been born since that time, in which anybody that dies or has died, there's been like a mock baptism, a posthumous baptism for those that were never declared as being baptized during their lives. This is something that I feel needs to end. And that mountainside vault blown right up. All files included. Furthermore, if there is such places in existence, such as seen in episodes of, say, The X-Files, to where there are these secret warehouses full of tissue samples, blood samples, DNA, of course, of all born here in the United States or otherwise, who knows? I think those should be destroyed. Why? Well, let's examine. By now, you know how I feel about this book here. And I want to talk a little bit about the future now. Let's go ahead and turn that right off. Because, of course, it's the past that dictates the future. And when it comes down to history, well, we already know that history is written by those that are winners of wars. We also know that throughout history, there's been a lot of history that has been lost to us. And then there's been a lot of made up history. There is still history being revealed today. Okay, so let's go to the past and to the supposed future via this book here. And as I've stated, this is, to me, in my opinion, the Freemason, one of the Freemason handbooks, if you will, or playbooks. Now, we think we know what this book is all about. And we think that it is about God and Jesus. Oh, of course, the devil, Satan, Lucifer, so on and so forth, right? And all those players in between. This book is divided into two categories, the Old Testament and the New Testament. The God of the Old Testament is so much different within the descriptions than the God of the New Testament. Okay, now I want you to understand this for a specific reason. Now, if you're familiar with this book, then you should be familiar with the story of Jesus, his birth, and his death. But not much in between. For that, you have to go here. And then what you find here, well, can be quite disturbing when it comes to that character that we have been led to believe in here. Now, the crucifixion, and I will be going into that in future video. But I want you to understand one thing. This difference between the Old Testament, the New Testament, the differences of the descriptions of God within the Old and New Testaments. And I want you to think about the sign that they hung over Jesus' head during that crucifixion period. King of the Jews, right? Okay, in the Old Testament we hear of the Israelites. In the New Testament we hear of the Jews. Now then, King of the Jews. Why was that sign hung up over Jesus? Now, yes, of course, there are those that one narrative out there that, of course, it was a mockery. But what you, in my opinion, in my belief, what you have been told about said mockery over that sign, is not the reality at hand. Jesus, in my opinion, and this is through this book, okay, the King James Version. Let me turn this back on because we will be needing this. Okay, the King James Version. And let's go ahead and we will go to the maps that have been included within. And I've shown this before. All right. Well, I guess we're going to have to shut this back off. Sorry about that. And what does this say right here? Hold on. This is getting awkward here. But it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how this comes out because it's, you know. Anyways, what's that say? Palestine in Christ's time. Why do you think that they're destroying the Gaza Strip? Why do you think that's been demolished? In Christ's time. Okay? Where did he come from? I've explained this before. The Sea of Galilee. Just a moment. Okay, so he was from the Sea of Galilee. He was a Nazarene, supposedly. All right, from Nazareth. But what? Palestine in Christ's time. Well, I guess that means that he was Palestinian. At least that's how I'm connecting the dots here. Think about that. Think about King of the Jews. So if he was actually a Palestinian, that really would be a mockery within those words, King of the Jews. Yes? Alright, so let's continue on with this figure or character known as Jesus. Okay, so he was crucified, supposedly died on the cross, was buried within 3 days. Okay, well, within 3 days he rose from the dead. Okay, it was not 3 days later, it was within, all of that took place within 3 days. The crucifixion and the resurrection, the burial and the resurrection. Okay, he did not arise from the dead 3 days later after the crucifixion. No. I don't believe that. Because of the wordings within this and the descriptions thereof. Now then, this character, according to the last book, within this book, that of Revelation, he is to return. And he's to return as a warrior. Kind of like how God was in the Old Testament. Back here. Right? But the thing is, how did it go for Jesus the first time around when he came to earth? And once again, do you know how to read this book and other prophecies? Yeah, I'm blurring out, I don't care. In the modern understandings of prophecy, linked to events, linked to the characters within the events. So if you're, if you're getting close to understand what I'm talking about here and why I brought about the vault and this and the return of Jesus, and the destruction of vaults. Well, for a few years I've been trying to change the narrative. Through my observations, I've learned a lot. Through my experiences, my encounters with things, I've learned a lot. I don't hold to the narratives that I grew up on. I took control of my learning and my understanding myself, and not through what I was raised on. Going back to the inauguration, the presidential inauguration of Donald J. Trump, and if you were paying attention, and if you've been paying attention to Donald Trump, he rarely bows his head and closes his eyes during prayers. And we even seen this through Barron Trump. They both were looking around during all the prayers. And then Barron Trump, of course, shaking his head in disagreement with what their religious authority that was at the inauguration was claiming through the words of this book. And Barron Trump, very young, shaking his head in defiance because he has been trained in the realities of this book. Understand this, people. Understand the characters of said end time prophecies, which, of course, have those prophecies already come about, and those of Nostradamus and others. There's been an opportunity to change all this, an opportunity as a believer in reincarnation or reincarceration, as I view it now. We could have put a stop to that. The revelations continue. Artificial intelligence is described in this book. I'm going to leave it at that.